Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Cloud City Cover.
This is a podcast where we're going to dive into the musical birth and evolution of musicians and comedians and various other artists of the Pacific Northwest. No guest on this episode, you're really just getting to know your three hosts.
I've known Marvin for a while, but this is Matt's first real opportunity to get to know him.
So stick around and let's get to know Marvin.
That one's recording. So that's what you just did is the official beginning. So that's it. First episode. One day we'll have a super fancy intro with graphics and something just real tight, real clean. I had several weeks to prepare for that, and I didn't do it. So here we are. We'll just do it.
You're in good
We'll just do it.
company here.
So
I think we should start with, who are we?
I haven't even thought about this. Introducing you go first.
That's why it's so good.
Yeah, you go first.
Because I haven't thought
This
about
is
it
cool.
either.
This is a cool experience.
We could just start with our names.
Yeah.
Hello, I am Joel.
So I'm Marvin. I'm here with Matt and Joel. This is welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for
Coming
having
to
us,
you from
man.
Fife, Washington, and
Thanks for
Joel's
having-
basement. Welcome to Joel's basement.
Yeah.
With your host Marvin.
And who are you?
I'm Matt. I'm Matthew David. And this is the first episode of Cloud City Cover, which, frankly, it's just a cool name for a podcast, but this is not how I thought it would turn out. Because I brought this up to Joel 2 years ago?
It was like 2 years.
Over 2 years ago. And the original idea was that we were going to, and it's still going to be a part of it eventually, but we were going to just do a bunch of cover songs. We were going to record a bunch of cover songs with various artists because we want to play music, but we don't want to be in a band because we're adults and don't have time. So it's a brilliant idea to be able to play music and not have to have band members, because band members are the worst.
Oh yeah,
they're the worst people I've ever met. And
I can confirm that.
yeah, and so it was such a cool idea, but then we started it because my opinion had always been that the hardest thing to record was drums, and that's all I'm really able to contribute is drums because I play them. And once we kind of had that figured out, it was impossible to line up people's schedules and get everything synchronized and to be able to get people to record their own stuff. We've only done one song, really.
Well, like that.
Yeah, the one that's like that one that we could put out today.
Yes.
But that's a 2-year process, which has been insane. So it peaked out for me when I was like, dude, we have to do this. The way that we want to do it isn't going to work. So
I still think that it can, but that doesn't have to be the focal point.
yeah, exactly. So exactly. It's not going to be the focal point, but like the whole idea of the podcast will be, because like this is what it was all meant to be, was just
sitting and talking.
Yeah, an excuse to hang out. And plus, I just turned 40 in 2023, and they just came to my door and they handed me microphones and things and said, you have to start a podcast now. Everyone needs to know your thoughts. That's what happens in America at 40.
I will be having that experience very soon.
Yeah,
so.
dudes, just give it to him. So I'm just stoked that we're here. And I said this earlier, but I almost canceled today because I'm doing a dry January. And I was like, I really would love to sit down and have some drinks and talk to my buddies about music. But then I had a really good out too, because my wife took the kids to the Harlem Globetrotters today, so I'm missing that. I was supposed to go to that.
That's kind of a bummer.
And she didn't remember until this morning, but I was just like, oh, I gotta, because if you like are canceling engagements because you're not drinking, I feel like that takes away from the whole purpose of being just a little bit healthier 1 month out of the year. So anyway, I'm stoked to be here. I'm glad I pushed forward.
Yeah, good job.
And while I think one of the really fun parts that I want to just incorporate in doing this, because I genuinely love beer, there's something about beer that like there's like where it's from and all the like kind of like different like fun parts of the labels I think are really fun. So I like save the artwork on really cool ones.
Yeah.
And to me, that's another just like little bonus thing where it's like this is an excuse for me to experience those parts of it as an art, which I think is, when you boil it down, what my idea of this podcast is like, it's about the art.
Yeah.
And kind of something that we talked about when we were talking about sitting down and doing this was, it doesn't just have to be music, or it doesn't have to be a picture. It's the whole art.
Yeah.
Comedy, stage, music, physical art, all of it. So
Absolutely.
To me, that's what this is about.
And bringing that up is perfect, because so much of this is going to be like the interview portions when we bring in a guest.
Yeah.
You're going to have like, because anyone that comes and plays with us, they're an automatic guest on the pod. And plus, I also think that because I do stand-up comedy too, bringing in comedians
It's a whole
to
separate network
to talk about their art and musical history is equally as interesting to me, and I think most people, about, okay, well, we got to bring in a guitar player to play on a song, and we want to know where they come from. But then also, I mean, just so much of it, because most of my musical background is going to be in punk rock. Like, I feel like comedy and punk rock are sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a very easy step. It's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's like, for the three of us, and we'll probably get to that later, but where we all started, whether or not we knew each other at the time, was basically kind of in the same roots, and it's just an easy place to go. But there's so much more than Club Impact. There's so much more than Almond's Best Annex. There's a whole plethora of background for each person. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And then when you go meet somebody else, they have their whole story.
Yeah.
So,
also, as part of the introductions, people should know a little bit about our history. Joel and I met when we were in 7th grade.
Yeah.
So 13 years old. And by the time we were 14, it was like, I was in his band, best buddies, like
we did everything.
Hanging out every single day. And so like a lot of our, musical experience and journey was together. And then Marvin, I met you at Joel's last birthday party, which was actually close to a year ago now. As we're talking about like how long this process has been to get this started. And I don't know you at all. We've had one conversation. I was borderline hammered. I don't remember the conversation at all. And I just remember being like, Joel, he's in. Like, go tell him he's going to do this with us. This is
that actually was a pivotal moment too, because I was like, we needed a fire to do something.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was something that like set in motion right there.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole idea is, I want to learn about people's essentially musical history and how it shapes them as people, as who they are now, right?
Yeah.
So starting, I'm talking like at the very beginning, like, I mean, you were born into a family, and then so what I want to know is like what is your musical birth? What was the first memory that you had where your parents were probably playing a record, or you were driving somewhere that something was on the radio, and it was the first time
Musically aware.
Yeah, music. Yeah, and it was the first time where you went like, "Oh, this is music. This is something I like. This is something that is invoking a response in me."
Wow, that's a really good question. When I think back to my early years, I think my mom really liked like Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith, and I don't think I cared for that at all. I just remember like my sister had a New Kids on the Block poster, and my mom tore that up. So that's the family, like from the very beginning, it was kind of like that. And then
what's the time frame like? Well, like what year was that? Like,
gosh, that had to have been I was born in '83, so that had to have been like 85, 86.
Okay.
I don't, I was a few years old when,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff's happening. And so my awareness of music at first was watching, that my brother and sisters, if they like this kind of thing, my mom will come in and be like, no, it's all bad. Like we're gonna burn your records and stuff like that. And so, my mom went through a funny phase. She's definitely not like that now, but there was that phase. And and let's see, I think that my sister's like Cube 93 or whatever, and so it was like more like rap hip hop stuff, and I would like I was able to like memorize the words to these songs, and and so I'd be on the school bus and it'd be a rap song, and it's just one of those days. And I knew all the words to the songs, and I didn't think of it as music, but just rhythm and the verbal part of it stuck out to me at first, but then
Can you think of anything that like your parents were listening to that kind of opened your eyes to something?
Yeah.
I understand for the first time why people want to hear this.
I don't know. I always looked at music as a way to get to know people. So I remember my dad was my favorite person. I always loved my dad, and so he liked Tom Petty. I remember was like the first thing, and actually that was actually the first concert I went to was Tom Petty with my dad.
That's pretty baller.
And and I thought that music was really cool, but like music was so different to me, listening to music and so on and so forth, until I saw a live band at, this was like at a community hall or whatever. It was the simplest thing like that. But when I saw those live instruments, it just blew me away that like, oh, that's how music is made. So it was like seeing that there, like the magic happen, like that comes out of those instruments. Like it just blew me right out of the water.
How old were you around?
I had to have been, at that point, I think I was 12, because I think I got my first guitar on my 13th birthday. And it was, after I saw that, I was like, I have to have that. I have to do that. But even still at the time, like I didn't have like a favorite band or bands that I liked.
You had older sisters though, right?
Yeah, I had older sisters, but
Yeah.
they were into that like hip hop kind of rap stuff.
Yeah.
And my brother too. I had older brother too. He was into like Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and
Yeah. But then you were 12, so I mean it's an interesting like dichotomy, because like it's like so many musical influences just come from older siblings, right?
Yeah.
And then but in a very formative time you saw, because I mean hip hop, like traditionally when you think of it right off the top of your head, they're not performing with instruments, right?
No,
so
yeah.
but then you see the instruments and you go, oh, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah. That's
I
what
don't
I'm
know what
taking
it
away
is
from
yet.
what you're saying.
Yeah. It sounds like that's when you kind of go off on your own path.
Yeah, well, and again, like I would learn about music through people. So like my sister would have a boyfriend, and I remember my sister had a boyfriend who was really into Korn, and so I was in like 6th or 7th grade at this time, and he's really into this Korn music, and I listened to that, and it's just like, that's pretty cool. It's heavy and dark and angry and whatever, and just like and then the Deftones were like that, and
Can I ask you, so at the kind of this transition from that like first awareness to where you're at right now, were your parents together at this time?
No, they
Okay.
split up when I was like 9 or 10 or something like that, and that's when I started hearing the classic rock that my dad liked.
Because that's what I was going to ask. The reason why
Yeah.
I'm asking is like, because it sounds like your mom was like, there's this certain stuff you can listen to, everything else we're gonna shred it, or
But
whatever.
let me tell you something funny though, because I grew up in that, like I had a friend at school that like had Led Zeppelin this and Led Zeppelin that, and like it was like so cool and dark looking, and like like when I heard my first Led Zeppelin record, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like it did not sound like, like I had to come in through like more like the punk rock and new metal kind of stuff. Like it had to be like really hard like that. And You know, because I mean, I guess I was aware of like, you know, 80s like hair metal and stuff like that, and you know, I wasn't super into that. But you know, after hearing Guns N' Roses, and then you think this Led Zeppelin's supposed to be cooler, and you're like, how is that cooler?
Yeah.
You know, it's not until I got into playing music and, you know, and like understood how music is made that, you know, you hear Led Zeppelin and it's like, oh my gosh. You know, Jimmy Page he's amazing. I mean, the whole band is just incredible and amazing. But yeah, it took me actually playing music to appreciate music, really, I think.
Yeah. And then when you start to get in a little bit into the recording process and you think about all of the
what it takes to make that.
Yeah, to make like a Led Zeppelin record or a Queen record,
because it just sounds like they're just sitting there jamming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. It's like it's such a piece of art because you know you could have like 26 guitar tracks and they're not playing the whole time, but you've got this part over here that just shows up, you know, and this thing over here that just shows up.
It's a happy little tree.
It just sounds like it's all just happening. Like, oh, he's just doing that. And live, he probably does just do that.
Yeah.
But to make a really good recording, it's like that sound over here has got to be done just right.
Right.
You know, it's got to be
You're
in this part of the room with this
illusion.
microphone and yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
just the amount of depth that they were able to put into music back then that gets I feel like a lot of it gets lost today, you know, just in the little bit of recording I can do on my own and the recording that Joel and I have done together. And I've watched Joel's skills grow. I mean, we did our first recording we did it with like literal tapes.
Yeah. Actually,
in your garage.
I have some of those tapes right here.
Yeah. And just like this, like doing like our own little version of like tracked recording.
It was a boombox such as this, with an output into another boombox.
Yeah, and then like your one of your buddies or your parents' friends had the digital 8-track recorder. And then we got to use that for the first time.
That was a game changer.
Yeah, absolute game changer. And then, I mean, God, I remember the first, we were 16 and we saw Pro Tools for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
That dude just moved sound by
Yeah.
pushing buttons. That's crazy.
You can use a mouse.
Yeah. So when you get to that point, like seeing how like records were made like in the late 90s, early 2000s, how they're made now, and then going back and seeing how
Led
Zeppelin and Queen and all of those bands recorded, or even, you know, Guns N' Roses, like as it starts to get later into the 80s when it was all still analog and reel to reel.
It was the technology of the time of Led Zeppelin, but they were doing just like unfathomable things. And like you can thank people like Ray Charles and the Beatles for just being frankly, if we're being honest, they were just so out there that they were thinking outside the box enough to try something new.
Yeah.
And that changed everything so that those bands in the 80s, 90s were able to do just miles beyond what they were able to do, even with Led Zeppelin and Queen, who were forerunners in terms of trying to push the limits of what they had. Because when they started out with like Ray Charles and stuff, it was just like you play live and that's what's recorded.
Yeah.
And by the time he was done with it through Les Paul and some of these other people and the Beatles, they were doing much more sophisticated but version of what we were doing, bouncing from tape deck to tape deck and things like that. Imagine the people who are running the wires, you know, in a studio that Ray Charles is privately funding because he's like, I have this idea and we got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And to me, each person has their own kind of journey like that. How do I do that? Okay, let me find, I need this guitar and I need this thing here. If I'm going to speak from my own experience, it's like I'm looking at pedals online and I'm checking out new guitar strings. And it's like, you're at a point where you can't stop, you know, because it's so moving.
You're at a live show and you're watching your favorite band and you're like trying to, what pedals he using? What's his amp? What the hell, the 5150, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember the first time, we were at Warped Tour, and it was the year that Orange County drums broke huge.
Yes.
Everyone's front face.
Those two holes.
The two holes and the OCDP logo. And we were just like, what is this new brand of heads? Like, we just assumed it was like they were making skins. But then, you know, you find out. So you're just... And now, okay, we find out how much those drums were costing. And it's like, okay, well, I'm 15. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Emulate.
Yeah, exactly. I can find out what kind of heads they're using. I can set it up to look like they're those kinds of drums. They sell the rings separately, so you can make your own, front head and stuff like that. But yeah, to go on that path of like, you saw your first guitar and you were...
So with what you're saying, my personality, I dissect that and find out like, what is it about the Orange County? Is it that it's maple, or is it that is it this thing? And then I'd find who does the cheaper version of that aspect of it, because it was never for me like showing people that I have this thing. But for example, with the guitar amps, it had to be a tube amp, and like that, and there was a certain time where not all amps were tube amps. Most amps were solid state amps,
especially
or
when we
the
were
really
growing up.
expensive amps were tube amps.
Yeah.
But you could find a cheaper tube amp, like if you knew how to look, you could find like a PV Classic or something,
But that was the coolest part in the beginning, is it didn't matter until far later. But like, because when you realize like, you're watching this live performance, you're like, that's how they make it. I want to make it now. It didn't matter what guitar you got. It was just, you got a guitar. And it was, my first drum set, my parents bought it for $100 from one of my brother's buddies. It was just the shells, a drum pedal, and hi-hat cymbals. No stands. That was it. So that's how... And I
Was that the red kit?
Yeah. And so that's... And because, like, Joel and I would do all the research and, what was the nice stuff? How do we make this sound like the nice stuff?
Yeah.
But by the time...
And this is before you could just Google in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had
Like,
to...
we're looking through
We were
magazines.
at shows, going to Guitar Center,
Yeah.
taking the bus to Guitar Center just to see what was there.
Yeah.
And, and by the time I sold that kit when I was 18, I got nothing but compliments at shows. Just be like, what kind of kit is that? This kit was so low end that it didn't have enough lugs around the drums. It was like because there's supposed to be an even amount, but there was an odd amount of lugs, and so they were constantly going
really
out of tune. Yeah, they were just absolute trash. But because I set them up in such a way, and obviously, we're all of an age where it's like Travis Barker still is the dude, but like he was the guy. So everyone flattened out all their drums, all their cymbals. You had to get a level and make sure that everything was perfectly flat. And so because of that, you create this illusion that you do have nicer gear than you actually have.
Well, then it's just how good the player is. So, you hear really good players playing on a piece of garbage, and you're like, what is that? Like, it's a piece of garbage, and you're like, it's the holy grail of garbage. I need that piece of garbage. And like, no, you need to practice, bro.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And you can always tell the folks that have this idea in their head that they're going to be better if they get the better
That was
gear.
me.
Yeah.
Yep, that's me.
Yeah. And I think there's an aspect of confidence that can be built by having a higher end equipment. There is that, but ultimately, just have you just tried practicing, man? Like you might. It was an obsession, right? Who didn't play in front of the mirror? I was an air drum champion when I was 14, 15, 16.
I have so many memories of you remember the old garage. I took a mirror out there to like look at myself while I was practicing by myself, and I think I might have even done this like before you guys came over, like we were gonna practice or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at myself to make sure, okay, do I look cool?
Yeah.
And oh no, don't do that again. Don't do that again. Yeah. But like,
if I could go back, I would definitely do that. If I could go back.
So Marvin, what speaking of that, like what was, so you saw a guy playing a guitar, you're like, I'm gonna do that forever. So that's kind of like a life altering moment. But what was it? What band was it? What song was it that kind of set you on what you would consider to be like your ultimate like musical path? What was it? Was there a record? Was there a song? Was there a year that you just went, oh my God, this is my lane now. I need to go find other people who are in this lane.
No, I never found people. No, I found the people first. I found the people first is what happened. So, 10th grade, a couple new people came to my school. One was Ray Cheslick, and the other was Shannon Donahue. And
Those were the Columbine shooters, weren't they?
yeah, no, but Shannon Donahue, he was the bass player for the Geeks.
Oh,
And-
Shannon,
yeah.
And so these guys were new to my school, and they were friends with each other, and I kind of cling to them, and they're, like, they just seemed so different and cool and
Oh, and
whatever.
Nate.
And no, Nate didn't go to school with us, but somehow I got invited to see like maybe Third Eye Blind or something like that, and like these are all friends with each other, and I was a lone wolf. I kind of have I have social whatever, like I'm different, and and so I met these people and just thought they were the coolest people in the world, and so I just followed them into their flock or whatever, and their little tribe. And no, but Ray, he wasn't in a band either, so me and him were like, we should do we should do our own band. And what did we like? He liked MXPX, I don't know, and I liked Blink 182. So we, that's what we were really into at the time. Was he played guitar, and I didn't play anything. I mean, I had a guitar, but it was like we're gonna do this thing. It was like we had a dream. We had this dream. We were gonna do this thing, and somehow I don't know if I got a bass or if I borrowed a bass, but I copied the bass player from Third Eye Blind. Third time around. I'll get there. The bass player, I got the same bass as he had. I just thought
This is the unknown connection that I didn't know about until years later, and you're gonna find out.
Yeah. So I was friends with they went to a youth group together, and I I had that really strict Christian mom growing up, so I knew about church and stuff like that, and so I went to the youth group with them, and they were I had all these friends, and that was Third Time Around and the Geeks, and yeah, so I mean that's what got it all started. It's just meeting people that played music and just thinking that was the coolest thing in the world, and wanting to do that too, and then we just started doing it, and and I learned about new music from all those people, because like I said, what am I interested in? I'm very eclectic. I really like classic rock because my dad really liked that, so I got super into Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. But at the time in high school when I met these guys, they liked all kinds of different like Christian punk music and stuff like that, so I got really into that.
And this was the era too of like it's the tooth and nail era is what I think.
Yeah,
it is,
yeah,
like,
and
there was just like a domination.
So
from like '96 to
Yeah.
like the late 2000s, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Easily.
Sure, yeah. So that's what got the whole thing started for me. I really into Pink Floyd, and that's the thing that like I'm super into Pink Floyd, and nobody else is. That's the only thing. Like
Gianna is.
It's my dang dad's fault, because when I was probably like 15 or something like that, I was like, Dad, what's your favorite band? And he said Pink Floyd, and so I got super into Pink Floyd. Got obsessed. I have a Pink Floyd tattoo. I got super obsessed.
So
I
what
can play a
album
ton of
was it that
songs.
was like the one you latched onto?
Well, The Wall. I got super into The Wall. I mean, I love Animals, and the Dark Side of the Moon I like better now. The Wall is just kind of long, but at the time, like I was just obsessed with The Wall. I got a Pink Floyd The Wall tattoo, and then I brought it up to my dad again, like, who's your favorite band? And he's like, Peter Frampton, and I'm like, Dad, I got a Pink Floyd tattoo. Like I was super obsessed with this thing, trying to like bond with you in my mind or whatever, and it's like he doesn't like music that way. So if you ask somebody their favorite band and they're not like into music, like they're just
Like
gonna
what was he just said the last record he listened to, and now you permanently branded yourself based on how he was feeling on like July 4th of 2003.
Exactly. Yeah. So that happened. I like a lot of very different music, but I don't like all music. Like I'm also very picky. There's infinite music out there.
Yeah.
So you could like 100,000 bands and still be really, really picky.
That's true. Absolutely. It's the amount of the amount of music or content or whatever that's out, especially since digital recording started and became like so prolific. Like, I mean, if you're on TikTok and you're just scrolling through that and you constantly come across just like teenagers who have these like wildly elaborate setups in their in their rooms, and
cameras,
like
lights,
and like
everything.
the quality of the recording is something that like was not attainable in the year 2000, like
Yeah.
to just have something that was just kind of in your bedroom, and now these kids just like I sound so old
it's
saying
like-
that, but they get to press a couple buttons, and I love it in the
It comes on your iPhone now.
yeah, I love it in the
I've
sense
recorded multi-track on my iPhone, and it sounded better than some stuff that we like paid money for.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
like it's just insane.
Yeah, and I appreciate it in the sense like because I mean people get to be so creative and they get to also come out with like they get to release like some sort of product that you can be really proud of, and it's all kind of like just piecemeal though. It's just this one thing and you put it out, and it's the next thing and you put it out. But I mean I guess. But it just exploded the options, right? There's so much that you're never gonna hear because it's almost too much,
It's
right?
it's a blessing and a curse where there's like this proliferation of music that literally people who don't have talent can make great music.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to be disparaging. I just mean like they're not gifted in the same way naturally.
I do mean that to be disparaging.
Well-
Though. It bothers me to no
But
no end.
But the fact of the matter is, I mean, there's some stuff that like people are pressing buttons, and there's a whole separate type of art that's I still think is valuable. But anyone can do it, which has opened it up just incredibly. At the same time, it's just a big wall of noise where it's like to even be noticed at all.
Yeah.
Like we just go back into our past a little bit. It's like we won that contest to play Warped Tour, and we got like, you know, enough notoriety to like go do something amazing, which never ended up really going anywhere, but it was like that was a springboard.
yeah.
And it took determination, skill, all that emulation stuff that we were doing. It took all of that. Now it's like a kid's in their bedroom and
Okay, so
it's on TikTok and billion views.
I'm thinking about what you're saying, and you know, and maybe we've gone really sideways. I'm breaking the fourth wall here. No, but
Also a great band.
so
Breaking the fourth wall.
no, but so now that there's access for anybody to make music, and you know, and everybody's so different that, you know, like it should be really easy to be really creative for everybody. But if everybody can make music, you know, how are we supposed to pick what's popular or what, you know, what everybody likes? But I think it would have to be so significantly different than any, you know, than anything that's been done before. And how do you do that when anybody can do anything? How do you do something that's so significantly different? And it'll be done. I mean, you know, like
Yeah.
music's not like over because everybody has a, you know, GarageBand on their phone. But I think somebody's going to do something so significantly different, it'll change the game, and there will be a game again.
Yeah. Like hip hop in the mid 80s going into the early 90s.
Yeah.
Like the rise that you saw in that time period, I don't know that you're ever going to see something as monumental as that again, or like, you know, pop punk, which is on a much smaller scale, but between the late 90s up and through 2010, and then the resurgence you see like just in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you're ever going to see that again, because just because something is different, it rarely means that it's good, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but you know, it's like people should just like what they like, which is fantastic. But you know, and I give people
that
I give
can
people
be Kesha.
props.
That can be Kesha. What you just like.
Maybe
Yeah.
after this
It could just be
electronic
bubblegum,
wave
whatever.
here, now that everybody can do everything, you know, everything's digital, you just push buttons, everything's electronic, artificial intelligence. But what's going to sneak in is going to be this like acoustic folk music that's like there's
on the lute and the lyre.
It's gonna be like, what is that? I don't know, but I like it.
Well, it's kind of like how every metalcore kid that you knew growing up eventually just started listening to folk music, like that borderline like bluegrass western style of music, because you spend so much time blasting just like the loudest nonsense into your
Then you
ears
want something
for
that's-
decades, and then all of a sudden you're just like you hear something that you're just it just puts you at peace for like a second. And so I mean I found myself going that way, and I don't like go out and buy the records. I'm never going to go to like one of their concerts, but good
Yeah.
golly, like when I'm searching YouTube, that's what I'm looking for.
Think of like Explosions in the Sky. It's the antithesis to that, the metal punk. And then there's this band that I really like called Hammock, and it's like it's just two guys, and it sounds like the part of a movie that you didn't know was music. That's what the whole band is, that. And because the like just nastiest black breakdown, just like I love that stuff. But also there's a time and a place where it's like sometimes you just want just
Yeah, you need to be able to breathe.
Yeah. And so it's like there's a part of that I guess you could call it a musical season. It's like there's a certain time that you want, this heavy, loud, everything. And then there's that band you never, I won't say never. I don't plan on ever going to see Hammock. Okay? Mm-hmm. I don't. I love their music though. Because I remember as a kid, my parents listened to vastly different music. Mm-hmm. Like they liked the same things, but they listened to very separate things. There was a time where I was like too punk rock to really love what I love, and to deny who I really am, which I did for many years. It was like, no, it's like I hate Cube 93. I hate, whatever. I love R&B music. I just do.
Yeah.
And part of that comes from that dichotomy of my parents. But it was like, there's some part of just like, there's a time and a place for a certain style of music, and it doesn't have to be all the time. I don't listen to R&B all the time. I don't listen to metal all the time. I don't listen to the like soundscape music all the time. Sometimes there's a season where maybe you're listening to it 24 hours a day for a while, and then you don't listen to it again for 10 years.
Oh yeah.
What I think is funny, with liking all these different genres and whatever, and the seasons and whatnot, is there was a time when I liked this music that was, we called it emo back then, but I think emo means something different now.
It does, yeah.
But it had all these different elements. It had these like really beautiful melodic elements, and then really expressive, angry screaming.
You might say emotional.
And like really emotional and expressive, and but it was like an intersection of all these things, and it was like, wow, that's it. That's so cool that all these elements are coming together, and in that phase you move through it.
Yeah.
But this is what's so impressive in the way that it impressed upon me, because it's like I'm not listening to Hawthorne Heights at all.
Thank you.
But there was a time where I listened to the one song or whatever, and like when I think about that time, I don't even have to listen to the song again. There's a time in my life where it was like that made an impression on me.
And the hair.
Oh yeah, the hair. Yeah.
Everybody had that hairdo. Hawthorne Heights, I don't know, whatever. It was like a mullet or something like that.
Yeah, the swoop mullet. What it was, I mean,
my friends called it the flock of seagulls.
Yeah, but everyone makes fun of like the Karen hairstyle, but that's what every metalcore kid had.
Nobody was safe at the time, and at the time everyone thought it was awesome.
Yeah. I was so jealous. I could never, like, my hair wasn't like that, and now I'm bald, it doesn't matter, but like I didn't have the patience for it. I didn't have the patience to grow out my hair, and it also started going thin in weird spots when I was pretty young. So like by the time I would have wanted my hair to be like long and cool and swoopy, and it didn't stop me from using a hair straightener. I just had short, spiky, very like aggressively straight hair. But yeah, it was impossible to get away from. Everyone in when I was in the band Tyson, like I was constantly getting a hard time for like being the guy with the short hair. You just look like
a regular guy, dude. Can you step that up a little bit?
Yeah. Like Ryan's it's his wife now, is a hairstylist, and like I think he was like poking and prodding her, be like, go make Matt's hair cooler. Go make Matt's hair cooler. Because I was just like,
which in fairness, he has a pretty like average Joe haircut now.
Well, everyone does.
Yeah. And that's what I mean though, is like we all start at the same place.
Yeah.
And we all end at the same place.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I'm 40. I'm 40, by the way. I turned 40 last year. I'll be about to be 41. But a few years ago, I thought it would be really cool if I like dyed my bangs red. It was cool when I was young, and I dyed my bangs red, and like I had, I put on a hat and went to the store and bought some dark brown hair dye. I can't do it anymore.
I still have a small box in my closet that's full of all of my studded belts and my belt buckles and my wallet chain.
Do you know how much that's worth?
I have all of it, and The other year, I think it was probably around like our 20th high school anniversary or something like that. Or I think I was gonna go play a show with one of my old bands, and I put the belt on, this like 3-row pyramid belt, the quintessential punk rock belt of the time, and I just remember feeling so foolish, and no one saw it. I just wore it in my bedroom, and I was like, nope, this isn't. It was the weirdest feeling in the world to be like, because this was cool, and it still is cool.
It actually is
for someone who's...
Gianna took mine.
Yeah,
like she wears it.
Last year we went and saw Les and Jake, and I was so pumped after the concert. I went online and was looking up plaid pants. I wanted some plaid trip pants.
Do you remember the struggle to get legit plaid pants?
Yeah.
I'm like, I can afford them now.
Now you can just Amazon it.
Exactly. That was I know, to get a good pair of like just plaid pants.
We went to Value
shorts.
Village all the time, no, they didn't have it.
Yeah, we missed out because you knew one kid who spent $5 to get just like the coolest pair of plaid pants you'd ever seen in your life, and you're like, I got him at Value Village, and then you would go every single day and strike out.
Yeah, I thought that was me, but no, I was just getting ugly golf bell bottoms.
Yep.
You know, but that
was also a whole separate thing too, though.
Yeah, but that was also like the coolest time when like you
polyester.
It's not that you didn't care how you looked, but you so specifically wanted to look foolish.
Yeah.
Okay, can we expound on that for just 1 minute? Because like our era is what's cool right now, the 90s.
Yeah.
I don't know if you brought it up or someone else. I was talking with somebody, and there's like what is cool now from the 90s is not what was cool in the 90s.
No, that's how it works.
Right?
No, that's exactly how it works.
And what we were doing with I remember I bought these like polyester like big collar shirts or whatever, because in the 70s those were atrocious. Nobody liked them. But I was like, oh yeah, this is cool.
These are the ones. Yeah.
This is cool.
Absolutely.
And so that like kind of had this like dawning on me that what is cool is what was not cool. And the reason is, and maybe this is where you're thinking is like your parents would look at it and be like, I was there, that was not cool. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. I see these kids that are really cool and they look so ugly with their clothes. It looks awful.
Yeah, I'm so annoyed with like dropping like
if you
the
wore that,
older one off
made fun of.
Dropping the older one off at school and seeing the cool kids.
Yeah,
they bother me to no end. Like, how dare you have that kind of confidence? You nothing.
Yeah.
Like, and you like you want to get out and just roast them, but it's like.
But they're the cool kids, though.
Yeah.
So you'd roast
but also,
them?
they're also like probably the most depressed people you've ever met. Like, because my eldest, like, I cannot get him to care at all about the way he looks. Like, I'll take him shopping for clothes or shoes or whatever and be like, which ones do you like? And he just goes, I don't care.
You know, I've got a few kids myself, and I have a teenage daughter, and she's already driving sometimes, which is terrifying. But I love her to death. Yep. Anyway, you know, like when I was a kid, a teenage girl, a 15-year-old girl, when I was a 15-year-old boy, was like, you know, so mysterious and beautiful and wonderful. But you know, being a dad and having a 15-year-old girl, I'm like, they're gross.
Oh yeah,
this
awful.
room is like how a boy how could a boy not see you've got Cheetos and Kool-Aid all over
corners.
your room? And like it's so gross. And like I have to remind her to brush her teeth. It's so gross.
Yeah, I won't divulge. Maybe I know a preteen girl that we're like, you need to take a shower.
Love you, honey.
She's cool.
I know you're watching. No, I love her to death, but it's just crazy that you know, kids were so they think they're so cool and they're
Do you remember when you thought you were so cool?
But they are. I guess that's ultimately what you have to get back to is you have to remember that they are cool. It's the coolest I ever was. 14,
That's fair.
I peaked in my coolness at 14. It was the least I ever cared about what everyone thought of me. Like when I walked into a room, it was the most confident I would ever be. Mm-hmm. I cared a lot about how I looked, but I also didn't care what people thought about it. Right? So it was like between like 14 and 16, I think. When I turned like 17, I don't know, I think it started to change a little bit, but like I was really just like, I would wear just outlandish nonsense to school. And yeah, I was so proud of it, and it's
Yeah.
that is cool. I wish I could
That
be
is
like
cool.
that now.
Yeah, that's a
Certainly
good
I'm
point.
not like that now, but
Okay, so to steer it back to just kind of somewhat of a format, I feel like we talked about some stuff with Marvin, but I would like to hear that same stuff with you.
yeah, I mean, this is kind of what made me think so much about like where this podcast would end up going and the musical history. But where mine started was my parents, who certainly were never like defined by the music that they listened to. Like, we never really talked about it. I would just hear kind of what was being played in the house, and it always, like, growing up, it always felt very generic, and it was always like the same 3 records, right? And one of them was Huey Lewis and the News, Sports. It was probably the first music that I was like, this is awesome. This is a music that like invoked a response out of me.
Awesome.
Like, at 3 years old, I was living in California, and it gave me energy. I had to run around the living room, like, because the first song is the heart of rock and roll is still beating, and it just starts off with that bass drum, to boom, 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 and you heard that, and you were just like, oh, shit's about to go off, and you're only 3 years old, and it's like, you're gonna go wild. So, like, that was when I was like, okay, music is a thing that can be enjoyed. And obviously you don't have a whole lot of memories of like all the music that was being listened to, but I remember a lot of Michael Bolton, like, because music was always played on Saturdays when we would be cleaning the house. That was the big thing on Saturday mornings. We'd clean the house, and it was always like Michael Bolton, Simply Red, Huey Lewis
yeah.
was a mainstay. Oh, and Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet was
Fantastic
was a big one that was in constant rotation in our house. And then I remember, like, rap music really, it kind of took over. I have 2 older brothers, and so I was just kind of like going with what they were saying was cool, what their friends were saying was cool. So I got really into rap music at a young age. So like, I never had the Chronic, but like the singles that were on the radio, I was listening to that, and I was, Snoop Dogg, Gin and Juice was like one of my favorite songs when I was 9.
Funny thing about the Chronic, because my brother had the CD, and I like the picture. He looked like he looked like a completely normal person, Dr. Dre.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, that's this music.
Just
like,
a nice fella.
I just
Like,
saw
yeah,
a
it's like-
picture of NWA, and Dr. Dre has a tucked-in polo shirt.
Yeah.
He was like the most put together out of that group.
Yeah. And so, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, you were talking about how like your mom was like real strict on what you had to listen to. Like, I feel like my parents were just the opposite, or it's not that they didn't care, but they didn't really pay much attention. So like, my brothers and I had a 2 Live Crew tape, and I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember,
enough.
it was not appropriate
Yeah.
for me to be listening to at all. So I was just constantly following my brothers, and the reason that's impactful is because, like, at some point their friends determined that rap wasn't cool, and so my brothers were like, all of a sudden, no, rap's not cool anymore. And I was like,
You're like, yeah, rap's not cool.
yeah, right, guys. Rap. So I don't know, you get really into what was that song by, was it the Crash Test Dummies?
Yeah.
So I got really into that song, and like Aerosmith. Like, my oldest brother, he bought like all the Aerosmith records, so I really enjoyed Aerosmith. I remember I had a Metallica tape of their Black record, the one with like Enter Sandman and all that. And so I got really into whatever rock music was just around and available. That was the new cool thing. But I wasn't passionate about anything. I was never going to people and being like, oh, have you heard the new Smashing Pumpkins record? I didn't really care all that much. But
So hearing both of your takes on kind of like that like formative years stuff is really interesting to me from the perspective, and we'll get to my part of it, but like, this more than Marvin probably does, just growing up in a very musical family where like music is everything. Hearing your experiences is just so mind-blowing to me, because it's like, you're like, oh yeah, I didn't really have like a favorite record or whatever, or like I just was like, oh yeah, my dad said that was my favorite record, and now it was my favorite record.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how, like, music was so important.
Well, at 13, when I found out that you had a band, I was like, what do you mean you have a band? Like, that's not
Yeah.
the band is on the record.
Yeah.
They play the music.
That's
you
the
don't,
band over there.
You don't play the music. They play the music. That's what it. That's kind of.
Yeah.
It just the idea had never crossed my mind that I would ever be in a band. But so like, I started playing. You know, in 5th grade, you get to be in elementary school band, right? And so, you know, my brother, he played the snare drum, and I wanted to play trumpet. And then I found out that you had to do the but the buzzy lip thing. So like after a week I was like, I'm out. I'm not doing that anymore. But my brother already had the drum, so I was okay, I'm a drummer now. So cuz I still wanted to be in the band. And I was at the time, actually this is probably the first record that I was ever able to like listen to from front to back. Silverchair.
Oh, yeah.
Was that a self-titled record, or did it have
The
Frog
Stump.
Stump? Duh.
Okay,
So that was the first record I could listen to front to back and enjoy just all the way through. I thought that was
stood the test of time. I can listen front to back.
still
to that
does.
record.
Yeah, it's still that album still rules. And so I guess like I could say like I really got into like that, and I really liked Everclear too. Sparkle and Fade.
Yeah,
that
that's a
record
great
was just. That was when I was like, oh, this is like, I thought
was
music
my
was
second
cool.
concert.
Like it was part of,
Dude.
it started to kind of become
That's a
like
good one.
a part of, you know, who I was. And then I think it had to have been like the summer after 7th grade. I'm 13 years old. And my brother Mike, who he actually started a band with one of his buddies. And he comes home with this fat compilation record, Survival of the Fattest. And I was like,
We have to cut it off here because this is our first episode and we did not anticipate being able to talk so much.
Check out episode 2 to hear the rest of this monstrosity.